I'm Christy King, your host of the FanReach podcast. Each episode features conversations with former NFL players and current sports business experts, Kenyon, Rasheed, and Brian Jones, as we explore the present and future of technology in the sports business. On this episode, we try to keep up with Chris Plonsky, the Executive Senior Associate Athletic Director and Chief of Staff for the University of Texas Longhorns. Chris responds to the recent news of the Supreme Court decision affecting student athletes, how the aftermath of COVID will likely change many things for students and alumni for years to come. And we discuss how technology, mobile devices, and user data are providing major benefits for modern university life. It's a great conversation. Thank you for joining us, and thanks for listening.
I vaguely know CP. I've been within her or in her presence for going over 30 years now. Chris, I mean, it's been a while since I was at the University of Texas, and it was obviously, per usual, great to see you at the spring game a couple of months ago down in Austin. And always wonderful to be in your presence. And I know my partner, Kenyon, who has been there with me on numerous occasions over the last few years to meet with you and your team at UT. So we thank you for your time. Speaking of time, a crazy time right now in the college sports world for you and everyone that has been ingrained in this still for a while. Your extensive career, over 3 decades in it, and you're there at the forefront of Title IX, and now you're dealing with NIL. You just had a huge ruling come down by the Supreme Court. COVID, that was thrust upon you a year ago, and everything shutting down. First question, how have you remained sane with all these things going on around you?
That's a heck of a point. We have all these crazy things that we can get alerted by on our phones. And this kind of tells you where we are in the state of affairs, be it with work or NCAA college sports. But when lightning alerts and weather patterns are the things that you look forward to on your phone, instead of like, now what did they decide? My phone was going off last night because I have it set to campus weather settings in case there's a thunderstorm that rolls through and we got to pull teams in. But that aside, this is actually kind of a bouncy day because we had a staff retreat yesterday all day long. CDC, our fearless leader, Chris Plonsky, as you know, is such an external guy, and he's so perfect for Texas and the university, Texas Athletics, and our great university, as a vice president and director of athletics. And he has steered us through some of these interesting times because he came on the job in December of 2017 at a time where we really needed to have somebody in the chair that was experienced and also had a bedside manner with constituents, coaches, student athletes that would ready us for the times that we're in. And again, yesterday was a great spirited sort of get together. We had a facilitator who came in, and again, it was just sort of rehashing what are we about? Why do we exist? Let's go back and make sure we all understand each other. And you guys who are probably in business and in media will appreciate this. We had done these surveys. The facilitator, a gentleman who runs a firm out of Houston, had done this same thing with our head coaches retreat on June 2nd. So we had exactly 20 days between the two. And we had to come out with about 6 statements that were important to what Texas athletics was and the things that made us who people expect Texas to be, operating with integrity, communicating effectively, talent acquisition, talent development, and making decisions, having courage to make tough decisions. Boy, did we live that in COVID. And in furloughing and reducing staff size, reducing expenses, all the things. But we were almost statement for statement, 5 straight statements, similar to what the coaches came out with. So I would tell you, despite 2/3 of our 300 or so employees working remotely since last March, to come back in person and to have two distinct groups, the group under the most pressure, coaches, who we all serve because they're the ones who identify the 560 kids we serve to come to our campus. They recruit them. The kids come for them. And to have our staff align almost, like I said, statement for statement about the why, the wherefore was amazing. So, I mean, I didn't even have a cup of coffee till 10 minutes ago. I just told my administrative assistant, I said, that's a miracle. That's how good my head feels. I don't even have a caffeine headache or lack of caffeine headache. You know, and BJ, you having gone to school here, you know how ethereal that is for us here at Longhorn Lands. And it's just that way at Oklahoma, our great rivals and friends. People would really be intrigued by how close we are with Joe and Lindy and that staff up there, Larry Nafee. We fight like hell on the courts and fields, but we try to lead the Big 12 and lead the country in college athletics. But it's really, to me, departments like Oklahoma and Texas have to be really super perfect right now because of the changes we're facing. You know, NIL, I'm not worried about NIL. I'm glad it's here. And you guys as role models in your worlds for younger people who want to be you, they see you, they know what you're doing. You're famous. Here's what I think NIL is. It's really another way to have a job while you're in college. It's a job. Now, remember, with jobs come scheduling, prep, fulfillment, things like being on time, doing the work to someone else's expectations, and then you get paid. So if student athletes who are in the non-digital world, you know, the YouTubers, the Instagrammers that have just been waiting to put some sponsorships on those eyeballs, and we've got a couple among our student athlete population that are going to kill it in this way because they're already creating juicy content that is watchable and they have followings. But the ones who go in the other direction of real conventional, what I would call activation, people that buy media and exposure and want endorsers, the planning that goes into that. I mean, I was in the sponsorship business here for Texas under DeLoss Dodge. That's what he said, start our sponsorship program. The detail that goes into every single one of those is beyond measure. And here's the other thing I like about this. It is as close to a real life world lesson that we can get for kids. Like, you know, you go ahead and don't show up for that photo shoot or that video commercial shoot. You go ahead and miss that autograph session at that really well-planned event that somebody put their money down, probably rented a facility for. Hey, this is what's going to be called, I hate to use this because I really like this guy and I respect him, but it's the Lance Armstrong lesson. You know, one day Lance had 100 million plus in sponsorships. Next day, after admitting that he made a mistake, he didn't. And companies cannot afford in this day and age to align themselves with entities, agencies, or people who in any way can taint or besmirch their brand. And by the same measure, our students should not align themselves with companies or agencies or people that would besmirch their personal brand because they're young. They're 17 to 23-year-old. They got to live a long time off that brand. So this is going to be really fun. We're ready for this. We're ready to help them. We've got programming that we teach them about. A lot of them are going to have to learn some financial literacy because I'm not convinced that a lot of them even know anything beyond Venmo. And they actually wait for somebody to feed their Venmo. I'm not sure how much Venmo they're giving. Because that's, you know, it's just the way of the world when you're 17 to 23. You usually have something funneling into you for support, but it's going to be good. It's going to be good.
CP, I've got a quick question around that whole process. So we talk about all the support that is going around student athletes and the NIL. One of the things that I looked at is the mental health issue. I mean, we have the student athletes are under enough pressure now with the media saturation. But now if you're talking about increasing that audience and that scrutiny because it's adding value to your NIL marketing right value, how are you and addressing kind of the other side of this, which sometimes be careful what you wish for. As professional athletes, we understand it better because we had to deal with the crazy fans. But if you're going to put yourself out and grow your membership on YouTube or on Instagram, it's not always rosy when you're playing. So the backlash of that is now I've got more fingers pointed at me, which can be a problem. So I wanted to get your take and maybe how you guys are looking at that.
Amen to that. And it's a great comment and observation. So, and again, BJ can appreciate this because again, he comes back to campus a lot and observes, but, and I think you guys will all appreciate this, including Christy. I grew up in a women's athletics environment first as a athletics professional. I was a communications officer. I mean, when I went to Kent State, I worked my way through school in the sports info office. I got hired by Iowa State as a women's sports publicist. And then magic fairy dust happened one day on a fax machine. And I saw a job at the University of By God, Texas for a women's publicist. It was fall of 1981. Wow. I land in Austin. I drink in the weather. I left 40 degrees in Ames, Iowa. I came here. It was 75, blue sky, puffy white clouds, as Bill Little, my mentor, has said. And it was amazing. And they took me to the swim center, which had just been built 4 years before. It was modeled after the Munich Olympic pool from the Germany Olympics.
Nice.
I said, if you swim here, 2,000 seats, crystal blue water. I was like, if you swim and dive here, I don't even need to see where you play football because my dad and I used to watch that on TV. I fell in love with this place. But getting to your question about what we do, think about this. I got hired as a publicist. We had 8 sports, 90 women, and our leader was named Donna Lopiano. She was Dr. Donna Lopiano to the students.
Yeah.
And Donna had a vision for what college athletics should be. Now, remember, heart of football country. Daryl had just retired from coaching 6 years before, and Fred Akers had it rolling. We had a great football team. Basketball was big. Baseball was big. But Donna, side by side, said, my women have no pro future unless you were an LPGA likely or a tennis player, because this is the era of Chris Evert and Tracy Austin and Martina. But other than that, if you were an elite athlete, if you could go to the Olympics, if you were a swimmer, diver, track and field person, every 4 years you got famous. But for the most part, our women were here. They were like, wait a minute, we get to play in these great facilities, get taught by great coaches, and we get a degree at this place that I could have probably never gotten in unless I was on a scholarship. Where do I sign? And Donna built this department. And because when we had a staff meeting, we could all fit, honestly, around my desk today. I think we had 27 full-time employees, including coaches. So little, but full-time academic advisor, full-time expert in sports medicine, had a full-time event person, had a full-time fundraiser. I was a full-time publicist. Wow. But those two people in academics and sports med, they were super perfect. And Donna said, we are beginning to recruit the elite of the elite. We're going to draw fans. They're going to be on media. We're going to make them get up in front of audiences and donors to thank people that support them, encourage people to buy tickets. We need to prepare them for what life is like after athletics. That model, honestly, is the model today expanded that we have for all of our men and women student athletes. We actually started to put our men in our academic and services model. We call it student services back in the mid 2000s. And ironically, that corresponds when the NCAA started tracking academic progress rate, graduation success rate, the 40% of degree countable credits in order to be eligible by your junior year. Remember all that academic ratcheting up the NCAA?
I don't, but I'm pretty sure BJ does.
Yeah. It was like, hey, you guys need to come over here because this is what the women have been doing, because we didn't really have anything to shoot for professionally to, unless you were really elite. And even then you had to go overseas. You know, Clarissa Davis went and played in Japan and Turkey. So did Andrea Lloyd, all those great ones. So bottom line, today, those services, it goes far beyond academic support and making sure you're healthy. We have great trainers and doctors. Now we have 2 full-time behavioral health specialists. You know, there's still a little bit of a stigma to the M word. So we switched that years ago to behavioral health because it covers more ground. Yeah. It could be things that you're diagnosed with, including a learning disability or an eating disorder, or you get depressed, or you have something tragic happen in your life. I mean, in COVID, we had people lose family members. You know, might not be a parent, but it might have been a distant relative. So we have had full-time from our school of social work, actually, these 2 grads are, and then we have 4 consults that we pay to take caseload hours when the burden gets big. So we've had that in place for years. Now we have nutritionists, 5 of them, strength and conditioning people, are coaches, but there are also applied sports science people in our department now. We have data analytics. I mean, all these things that we do for our students. And most recently, to your point about prep, in addition to keeping them mentally and physically well, we have just realigned everybody else in our student services area to really put some more punch and personnel into what we have been calling our the number 4 Ever Texas area. And that's the area that NIL, personal branding, career prep, job networking, internship finding. We're going to put it all under the Forever Texas umbrella. And we already have 3 full-time employees in there. We're adding our entire letter winners group, Ricky Brown, Jill Sturkle, Courtney Glenn, all 3 former elite student athletes on our teams. And they are going to be part of that because we need our young people to be Longhorns for life starting their freshman year. And they need to know what our grads like Brian and you, Kenyon, people like you are doing because you were in their shoes and they respect you guys the most. They'll listen to you the most. Yep. So we're just realigning all of that, all those services for the career part and job placement under Forever Texas. And then the rest of those services, including the behavioral health, will remain in sports medicine.
Wow, that's great. You're giving them some real world application as far as the NIL, the behavior services, all those things that are now afforded to them. Those resources can be invaluable, and to have those touch points at such a young age, tremendous. And speaking of touch points, Kenyon and I have been preaching for the last 4 or 5 years about a cashless universe within the sports world, and COVID accelerated that. And now you're seeing everyone going to mobile ticketing and everyone's going to cashless and mobile ordering and things of that nature. What type of adoption? I guess maybe it's really too early to tell since you didn't have fans really in the stands a season ago. But what type of adoption thus far have you seen as you sign up your season ticket holders, or they come to re-sign up for this upcoming football season and now understand, well, you're not going to get a paper ticket. That ticket's going to have to be downloaded on your phone. And that's how you gain entry into the arena or to the stadium. And what's that adoption look like at this point?
Well, the brilliant Drew Martin, who is our external affairs director, Chris brought him down from TCU to head that division in spring of 2018. And I had known Drew when he was at A&M, our beloved other rival, when Drew was a trademark licensing and marketing officer there. So I'd known Drew a long time. And when Del Conte got here, I said, please take this area and give it to someone else because it needs new eyes. Drew has created the magic that you guys have seen on Texas game days. Football, but also volleyball, basketball, baseball. And in COVID, to your point, thanks to agreements with Pacquiolin and many others, we have gone totally mobile. We were cashless. In fact, we converted what used to be ATMs in our stadia to machines that now you put your credit card in or put cash in and it'll give you a card. And that's how you go buy your concessions, your water, your beer, whatever you need. Last Wednesday, we all had the good fortune in Austin of going to the dry run, as we called it, at Q2, which is our new MLS team stadium for Austin Football Club. They played the U.S. women's national team. As we were going, I went with Coach Conrad, our former basketball coach, one of her former assistants, Kathy Harston, and one of our former players. And I said, this is going to be like our scream game. Like, we have one game a year in women's basketball where we invite all the grade school kids in Austin to come. We call it the scream game because it's at 11 o'clock and it is ear piercing. But with Megan Rapinoe and Kristen Price and all those people there, it was the scream game that night, you guys. But we had to be fans. So we had to figure out how to get an Uber there, get out. Okay, that's cashless, that's seamless. We had to get to our gate. I had to download the tickets on my phone from Ticketmaster. It was all cool. We'd get through the gates, except my clear bag was too big. I had to get everything out of it, stuff it in pockets, throw my clear bag away because it was 4 inches too big. Note to self, next time I go back there. We go in, one person says, I'm going to concessions. The lines were long. They killed it that night because it was a full boat. Came back cashless. Everything's cashless there. And then when we exited, again, we had to find our way back. Where's the Uber pickup? So we had we kind of were secret shoppers for Andy Offnane and the rest of the people. I saw him a couple of days later and I said, you guys did it well. More signage for the Uber go away would help. But we are there ourselves and we will be there for our opener September 4th when Stark takes on ooh la la, as we call them, Louisiana Lafayette, 3:30 in the afternoon on September 4th. Bring your sunscreen, but we'll be ready. So I think this is here to stay. At every event I've gone to, there's not anybody that's exchanging anything, and we'll be better, healthier, and frankly, things are more expedient that way.
Yeah.
One of the driving points or selling points we've always said is it can drive conversions. Was it 20 to 30% more conversions via cashless than the other way? Absolutely.
And, again, the younger generation, for sure, these digital natives that are coming to campus now, I mean, this is what they expect. So, if you're not with the program, you better get with it in a hurry because, they're not waiting around for this. This is what this is what they want from vendors, their colleges and everything else.
Love that. So talk about a little too, CP, about the growing cost in college athletics. Expenses are up. And I read an article out of the Sports Business Journal of how many athletic directors have resigned in the last 2 years just because we're seeing such a change in the landscape with all of these different pieces going on. Traditionally, athletic departments have moved very slow in terms of change. You guys have moved extremely quickly. And I'd like to get your take on how, first of all, how have you been able to accelerate things this quickly, given the size of the athletic department and obviously where you guys sit. But number two is, what advice would you give to other athletic departments that maybe be looking at making this switch and have kind of been stuck in neutral, trying to figure out, how to get this done?
Well, I will tell you, Kenyon, 49 years ago today, Title IX was passed. And somebody on an earlier Zoom meeting with me reminded us of that. It was a professor over in kinesiology, said Happy Title IX Day. And I thought it was
it's only been 40 years?
49.
49. I was thinking, I thought.
Next year will be the 50th. Thank you, Birch Bay and others who, Patsy Mink, think about the people that battled for that law. Because, back then it had nothing to do with sports. It had to do with breaking through glass ceilings at federally funded institutions. It was total access, classrooms, engineering, science on campuses anyway, law. I think that we've been able to keep up with the needs of today's modern athletics department because of our start. And that's the reason I brought up Title IX. Texas was one of those schools, publicly funded, in the South, very white until the late 60s, when Julius Whittier became our first football letter winner in 1970. Now there's a statue to Julius, very appropriate, but Texas did not wait around when it came to equity on the women's side. It started its women's athletics program officially. They declared an interim director in 73. First varsity year was the 74-75 school year. So think about all that building. And then when the NCAA national office deigned to say, I think it's time we start hosting women's championships. Y'all, that was 1981-82.
Wow.
That was my first year at Texas. Up to then, it was AIAW only. NCAA started, and now we've got sort of a runway started. And Lopiano just sat here like this. Now you got us. We're going to be ready. We wanted everything. I mean, we were crazy ready. Our coaches were great. Our kids were great. Our facilities were magnificent. We had great support. Keep rolling forward. We get to a great new league in the 90s, the Big 12. Heyday. It was such heyday. The old Big 8 was heyday.
Yeah.
But when TV and that infamous Georgia, Oklahoma NCAA television case passed in 84, now the CFA has to form, College Football Association, conferences control the rights. Now you see why in the mid 90s, the Big 12 got the highest ever up to then in 1994, struck $110 million cable deal with Fox.
Yeah.
Fox for cable. Yeah. That was the biggest in the country. Then everybody else started to get busy too. But at the end of the day, we've been very lucky based on what we did early, did our homework early, as they tell you, do your work early. And then as things come down the pike, you're great leadership, great leaders. I mean, be it Lopiano, Conrad, Dodds, our presidents, and now Del Conte, they see around corners. They know what's coming. DeLoss Dodds, when he hired me in 93, he said three things. He said, we're doing great in fundraising. We're selling a lot of tickets when we're good. He said, but we need to start paying attention to licensing, sponsorships, and television. He said, there's going to be another thing on television coming. This is 1993. What he was really talking about was third tier rights, which today in our world is Longhorn Network.
Yep.
And that man, I'm telling you, I don't know, it might have been that really good red wine he likes to drink or a little scotch as we used to partake together. I like both, but I'm telling you, that man could see around corners, and he just said, go, figure it out. We had people like Don Evans and Tom Hicks on our board of regents who understood business. Took us 4 years to get some rules changed, but by the time we hired Mac, Rick Barnes, and Augie Garrido in the late 90s, we were ready for that parlay. So now again, we get ready for something else again. NIL, we're ready. We've got the academic people. We've got creative services people. I mean, instead of hiring a firm outside to teach our kids about this is what you need to do in social media, here's how you do your personal brand, our creative videographers, story writers, photographers came to us and said, we think we can teach those classes to our kids. Will you let us? We were like, have at it, man.
Perfect.
So we have our own built-in little programmers. We're going to use vendors and others for financial literacy and some other things we have to do, and probably professors across campus. We're so ready for that. Now, the next thing that we got to figure out is what's going to happen with the Alston case. I mean, what does that really mean? Does it mean that we're going to be able to add, and again, my hands up for this too, as Del Conte's would be, if we're allowed to give him more aid tethered to education, because we already can do cost of attendance, they can get their Pell Grant, full, their scholarships, they can work, NIL and otherwise. We give them all the medical, health, academic support, career prep services. If this is an extra amount of dollars that can be tied to their graduation, you give them a little boost forward when they're getting out in the world, great. What we don't know, though, is from the Kavanaugh statements, because he kind of embellished a little bit after the 9-0 decision on the appeal. He just said he's not sure of the model. So that's what we're going to wait and see. Will this model, and this is where I got to, I'm 63, so y'all, I have socks older than all of you, so I can say this. I'm long in the tooth, And I have personally benefited from a student athlete experience. Old as I am, it was still a student athlete experience at Kent that is very dear to me. It educated me, and I got jobs, and I've been able to be around great coaches, ADs, and kids my whole career because of it. It would break many hearts if the value of education and the college experience goes out the door with whatever model someone is going to determine is correct for college sports. Because no matter what we're talking about, 99% of most Division I, Power 5, Autonomy 5 athletics programs, 99% of the kids are not going to make a living with their arms and legs. They're going to have to live 50, 60, 70 years beyond doing something and slugging it out in this global competency demanding world the way we all did. And I fear that if that gets ground down to a nub and we're a poor man's version of Bull Durham's movie, minor leagues or whatever, I just wonder if the people that supported Brian's experience here at Texas and across the country at other schools, Oklahoma, Stanford, Notre Dame, you name them, will they really be as enamored with reaching in their pocket and sending that check? Because I firmly believe that colleges, I know how higher ed is supported, even at a public institution. Less than 10% of UT's $1 billion budget academically comes from the state. It is all privately supported from alums and donors. Athletics is fully, our $215 million budget is all supported, self-sustaining. So if we lose that mesmerizing, appreciative, like I am helping a student spirit, if we want to go watch pros, we know where we can go do that. I can go to the Rockets, the Spurs, the Cowboys, the Texans, the Rangers, whatever. I can go get that. I like this stuff. I like this population, this age group. I think our coaches and staff like them. I think our faculty likes them, and I think our donors like them. So if we go to pay for play, straight up employer for a subset of them, think about what we'd lose in the camaraderie among a department. Like take this year, Texas, in COVID, 38,000 COVID tests administered. We paid for every one of them. That wasn't cheap. We skinned up our budgets to be able to survive in COVID. We won 13 conference championships. We won 3 national championships in swimming, women's tennis, and women's rowing. We got baseball fighting their butt off up there in Omaha.
Yeah.
We've had an epic competitive year. Our fans are lifted. Sark said, hey, he got COVID. He admitted this in a speech the other day at Boys and Girls Club. He said, I got COVID right after I got here. I was stuck in the hotel at the AT&T Conference Center on campus. He goes, guess what? Got Longhorn Network. Got to watch Vic's team battle the Final 8 in women's basketball. Watch Jarrett's volleyball team finish second. Watch beginning of baseball. Watch tennis. Watch swimming. He goes, the spirit of being part of an athletic department where all the sports are good, he goes, that helps my team. I can't wait to get that culture of do it, and be as good as this group. And Brian, you know how that felt walking in the dining hall? Like, what'd you do over there? You guys do it. I mean, that's what college athletics is.
But what you're describing is another potential sort of pitfall where there's, the handful of super athletes and everybody else, not just even the team, but individual players that are super rewarded. And all the issues and drama from technology to fame to financial support to the way fans interact. That is a huge, crazy burden to think about for a 17, 18, 19-year-old period. Because I don't know about you guys, but I was an idiot at that age. So if you look at that and then you look at all this technology on top of it and the fact that technology is permanent and your discussion at the beginning about brands, all of this coming together in relation to that Supreme Court decision, you really do have to have a program at the collegiate level to help these kids not shoot themselves in the foot and actually get something positive, even if they make a handful of mistakes, which we should be doing at that age. That's how you learn. Better to make it at 17 than 47. But there's somebody has to be there to help them. And it sounds like that's going to be the future of college athletics. It sounds like is really teaching people the business of, self-branding and finance and understanding how to work in this world of high technology. Would you say that's true?
That there's no question. And again, the readiness of our population is 17 to 23-year-olds. Every once in a while, you'll have a red shirt. You might be a 24-year-old senior or fifth-year senior. But they're formulating, who am I going to be? What am I going to be? Who are my, soulmates going to be? Who's my partner going to be? My husband, my wife, whatever. There's a lot of stuff, and they're on their own for the first time in college. That's overwhelming. I mean, we all know what we were like at 17 and 18-year-olds. I mean, hey, and the pressure that's on our coaches right now to recruit the right fit for not only the campus academic environment, but you have to be elite in your sport, but also the social environment. I mean, when I moved to Austin in 1981, it was 325,000 people. I thought it was the best kept secret in America. Our ADI right now is San Antonio and Austin are considered one media market by the Spurs and by everybody else for television ratings. And I mean, it's a huge city. It's 2 million plus people. There's no, we're still the hometown team. State capital and politics still dominate, but just what the high tech sector and things have brought to this community, music, what it's brought to this community is crazy. This is a world that, again, is very different from what generations of young people have come through campus, not just student athletes, but regular students. So I just would hate for what I would call, look, you guys have been in the pro leagues. You know what you're paid to do in the pros. You are a commodity. And, they hope that you'll be healthy and contribute. But when that stuff stops, they either cut you, trade you, or, put you on IR, and then it's somebody else. And I just cannot see, for the young people that I'm around and have the good fortune to be around, male and female, but especially our male student athletes in the sport of football and basketball, I would really like if that's the process that they're good enough to experience someday because of their skill, I would just assume they wait on that and not have to do that while they're here. Because again, we have no blueprint for that up to now. And if it holds that we literally have to make them employees, that will be a separation. It's the bright line in the highway. It's the line in the sand, as my boss, Dave Gavitt, used to say at the Big East. I mean, it will truly mean that the name on the front of the jersey disappears and it's all about the name on the back. And again, that's the connection, the tradition, and all the things that have made college sports be as popular and ethereal as they've been. I just don't know if it will be responded to in the same way when it's just a business. And
well, I would hope, Chris, to your point, that young men and women still see a ton of value in the education, because one of the best moves, if not the best move in my life, was to return to the 40 acres after the NFL spit me out and resume my education. And wow, what a just exhilarating, wonderful experience. And I'm not going to lie, there was some fear. You got this old dude on campus with all these young folks going and sitting in class. However, oddly enough, unlike when I was a true co-ed, I sat at the front of the class.
Yeah, you needed a lot of resources when you went to school. I don't know where Chris was then, but
well, that's the thing. See, when I went back, I didn't have someone go pick out my books for me.
Exactly.
I had to go find
do it on yourself. Yep.
It was all on me. So that was a huge shift And man, what an enlightening experience for me to now have to do this on my own and really be forced to grow up as a 32, 33-year-old man who'd already been out in the world. But going back and being able to walk across that stage, wow, I just light up just thinking about that experience. And furthermore, your other point, about that camaraderie and how you walk into that dining hall. Now, my struggle was a little bit better than that, CP. My struggle, when I walked in, a little bit better, a little smoother than that. But I'll say this, I saw a post the other day of Travis Mays. He was out at the UT Golf Club. I don't know if it was Steve Tremere or someone posted it. And I had this flashback to being in the dining hall, being in the dorms, and that camaraderie, because the Running Horns at the time and how well they were playing. And there's always a competition, and Kenyon can speak to this, between the different sports. And there's a camaraderie as well. Whether it's the men's sports or the women's sports, it didn't matter. The women's track team, we were all pulling for each other. And we'd sit there during March Madness, watch Travis Mays, watch Lance Blanks, and all those guys. So that I hope that still holds true in those dorm rooms. But I wanted to circle back, because Kenyon mentioned how quickly you've been able to adapt there at UT. And what I've noticed over the last few years, especially since CDC has come on board, is you now view this not just as an athletic department operation, if you will, but as an entertainment division. You've game day there for football. You got the pregame festivities and concerts. It's like a state fair is going on, or a mini fair is going on around the stadium. You have the game, which is the signature event. But after that, no, don't go home, folks. We got something else for you. We want you to stick around. So, it goes back to the old saying that Mac Brown brought to the 40 acres. What was it? Come early, be loud, stay late.
Stay late.
Yeah. And they're obviously doing that. So I see it more as an entertainment entity than an athletic department.
Well, again, it's a little bit in the reaction to the growing size of Austin. Mm-hmm. Where, when you commit to come to a football game, you commit. It's a day-long adventure. And what we want to do, and what Drew and CDC have done, and their staffs they've said, we are going to make sure that you have a good reason to come early, be loud, stay late, and wear orange. So they've created these zones of festivities. And smartly, with our friends at C3 and Charles Attal and the great folks there who do live music, they said, we're just going to transplant. We've been doing stuff downtown and in appropriate venues. We're going to bring the music to where the people are. We're going to go fish where the fish are. And really and truly, you guys remember when LSU played us two years ago? I have never seen our campus like that. ESPN Game Day was here for an early show. But the thousands of people that came early and then just stayed on campus until that night football game, it was nuts. And I'll tell you, 2 weekends ago at baseball, when we finally got to 100% of fans and we were playing South Florida in the Super Regional on Saturday night, I looked at Del Conte and said, this looks like LSU game day in our baseball area. That was, on the east side of campus. It was crazy. The tailgating, the pent up, you could feel it. People couldn't wait to be out and in person again. It was electric. And again, you just can't create that, Bewitched style by twinkling your nose and saying, snap, it's going to come. It's going to magically appear. It is planning and production and careful detail. And we're really proud of our staff. But again, we feel like to ask fans to commit, we have to give them something, and we have to combo the unique areas and aspects of Austin, Texas, and our Lone Star State, and to let people experience them at every age level.
In a corporate world, in sort of professional sports, you've got now almost every entity has a bunch of people in a room doing data analytics to figure out what their fans want. Is UT doing that kind of stuff too?
We are. We get Drew and his staff get constant feedback. They do surveys of our fans. We geofence certain areas on game day. And what will be really interesting about this fall is, we've totally transformed our south end zone, and it will be done. Brand new area. So there'll be traffic and walking patterns into our stadium. Fans will be told this is the gate you go in, because trust us, it'll save you a walk. We're able to give our fans, through the beauty of phones, more info and information that will help them enjoy game day better than we ever have before. But yeah, and again, we've got lots of partnerships too. I mean, our Learfield IMG college sponsorship arrangement, our sponsors went from being really tied to in-venue exposure, like they wanted those signs and wanted those commercials, to being convinced by Drew and CDC and Scott Willingham and his great sales staff to saying, you know what, you might want to think about outside the venue, because we're going to create these hours and hours long areas where fans are going to be before they come in. And when they come in, there'll still be a little few pockets of exposure you can get, but where you really can make hay with your product, your service, your name, your image, your brand, is where the people are. And so our sponsorship sales group has helped us right along the way with this.
This is a really wild conversation, super enlightening to me, because really you're talking about you're going to have all this information that's going to change, and you've got to feed to student athletes coming in now with all the new rules and all the new way it's going to work. Plus all the changes because of COVID, plus all the changes because of the way money moves around these days. Just physically doing banking is so different than it was even 10 years ago. And then you go to these events and nobody wants to sit in traffic anymore. So now, instead of just going to the football game, to your point, or the baseball game or the soccer game, you're there all day, and you're going to restaurants, and you're finding bathrooms, and you've got to park somewhere, and you got to feed your kid somewhere. Like, there is an incredible amount of data, not only about your students, but about all these people that are coming in support of the students. And you're trying to figure out new ways to finance the school, because, as you pointed out, money doesn't come from the places that it used to come from. So you're really, the university has a treasure trove of probably hundreds of thousands of people, in the same way a corporate entity has a huge amount of information on the people that are, that use their product or service.
Yeah, we're a mini Amazon. We're a data hog. We really are. I've never appreciated IT people so much in my life. As Kevin Durant would say, they're the true MVPs. I mean, because if those apps didn't work, if we weren't able to track and follow and know who went to the store after they scanned their ticket to buy a T-shirt, and who went to the beer stand, and what did they buy, and did they also buy a hot dog, or did they wait and go all the way around to where the Fletcher's corny dog stand was? I know that's where Brian goes. It's amazing what you can glean. We had a really wise president here, and Brian knows him, Larry Faulkner, who used to say in meetings, without data, all you have is just another opinion. So data is king, content is king. And boy, the magic of, again, through the internet and phones and programming, that you can know what your not just who your customer is, but what they do. And trust me, they want us to know what they do, because they want to be treated customized in a customized way,
like curated experience.
That's right. You knew I went to the volleyball match before the football game? How'd you know that? Data.
CP, I got a quick question. With all the technology that exists out here, so I can tell you how saturated the market is with mobile ordering and mobile apps and ITs and payments and all of this. And you guys are an athletic department. How do you try to evaluate these technologies according to these different fans? Because one of the conversations we always get in is it's us, right? And so we're in this different age group that necessarily doesn't consume sports the same way that a 17 to 23-year-old does. So if our people are evaluating technologies for this group, how hard is it for you guys to kind of decipher what's real and what's not, and what fits and what doesn't?
I think that is one of the most astute observations of what separates a university setting, higher ed setting, and its co-curricular program, which is athletics. Because think about who your constituents are. They go across a range of ages. They go across a range of where they are. I mean, we have 540,000 living alumni at the University of Texas. Living alumni, that's a lot. When we graduate people in May, it's 9,000 people who are in that class.
Wow.
And we graduate another 6,000 in December. It's crazy how just the sheer volume of people. And the record keeping on all of them. And then you've got, the older citizens who were here when Daryl was still coaching, and then those who were legacies after them. That's what makes it really hard for us we can't have just one vanilla solution for everybody. How we captivate our students. We have 50,000 students on this campus. About 40,000 of them are undergrads, another 13,000 grad students. We can't talk to the grad students the same way we talk to the undergrads. You can't even talk to a junior the same way you talk to a newbie freshman here. So we have a staff that is very discerning about what they and how they deal with our students. The one thing we have done, though, is to keep our access point pricing low for while they're on campus, because you know what? You got 4 years to capture them. We are a 4-year graduation rate university. Our 4-year grad rates by presidential decree have gone up every year, and they're excellent. But that means short window. So if we don't capture those young people when they're here, convenient to us, there's no prayer once they get off and out in the world. So we better do our homework while we're here. And again, technology allows us to do that. So again, we have to trust our marketers, our IT people. And because we're on a campus, we're not incorporated as an athletic department the way Florida and Kansas and others are. So our IT people can't make decisions without campus IT people. And trust me, they have the God badge over there. We know what we can and can't do there. So, and I'll tell you this, the beauty of how that can all work to everybody's advantage was truly COVID. For every meeting that we had as a staff, we had reps from our department in sports medicine and operations and internal affairs going across campus and meeting with fellow campus people who are in charge of campus operations. Sean Eichhorst, our great internal affairs deputy and COO, showed a cover sheet the other day to me in CDC. It said COVID meeting number 100. Wow. It was his 100th meeting with his campus colleagues about COVID. Now we're at the end of the hard stuff, but can you imagine 100 different meetings? And he said, amazingly, our president and provost attended 90% of those, which is amazing in itself. People of that executive level were in the weeds on every campus decision. Which classes were hybrid, which were in person, how are we going to do buses or dorm rooms? I mean, crazy stuff. But technology, talk about a pivot. I mean, we were not a massive online course offering university. We're touchy-feely here. As big as we are, love in-person stuff. When they extended spring break by 1 week last March and said, we are going to go online learning, I just held my head and went, this is not going to happen at UT. This is a slow moving Titanic ship in a tight harbor. Amazing. Millions and millions and millions of hours of Zoom classes, MS Teams classes. They did it. I have no idea. But again, IT people, technology people, they deserve kudos because that's how we got through this.
Well, Chris, we have taken up way too much of your time, but it has been so enlightening, as it always is. with you. I love you to death. I am so happy that you and I have remained friends over all these decades, and you continue to do tremendous work. And we can't thank you enough for joining us on the FanReach podcast.
Well, thanks. And thanks for repping the Longhorn silhouette there, big guy. And again,
I'm just going to say one thing. I have to add this.
Go ahead, fire away.
I want to commend the University of Texas for how you guys have embraced a former athlete like Brian Jones. And let me say this, being in the environment, seeing how you embraced him was enlightening, because when he went back to school and he got out of the NFL and he's back on campus, you guys supported him like he never left.
Yeah.
To me, that is a true sign of a great athletic department, and an athletic department that's doing it for the right reasons. So I wanted to personally let you know that.
We believe in those phrases, Longhorns for life and forever Texas. And again, it is always about the young people. Every day I come in here and I stare at buildings on this campus and think, I mean, God blessed us to work at our universities wherever we are, but it is always about the students first. And you're always a student. Brian will always, to someone, as will you, Kenyon, be somebody's student.
Yep.
He never treats you any different, right? When you see your family, you're their baby. Always.
Absolutely.
About you. You might as well be 17 to 23 again.
Yep. Hit it on the nose. Great.
That is wonderful.
Oh, thank you so much, Christine. That was great fun. What a good conversation. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, y'all. And
all right, TP, hook them.
In our contract, hook 'em horns.
I can't put that up yet, but okay.
Well, thanks for joining us for this episode of the FanReach podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. It's always a pleasure for me to hear the unique perspective on sports entertainment from Kenyon and BJ. Not many of us had the talent to play professional sports, so I feel like it's a pretty instructive experience to hear how they see the industry, having participated in sports as players, commentators, business owners, consultants, fans, and parents of fans, and now as experts helping us more clearly see the intersection of technology and entertainment. Be sure to follow FanReach on your podcasting platform of choice or YouTube and LinkedIn. That way you can keep up with the latest in sports mobile app technology from FanReach.